Please welcome Sarah C.K. Moore, Assistant Clinical Professor of Applied Linguistics and Language Education.
I wish someone, even just one person, had been able to speak to me in Spanish, the only language that I knew. These are the words of Professor Sonia Nieto in reflections on what might have been about her time as the child of Puerto Rican immigrants in New York City public schools. Scholars have referred to the United States as a language graveyard. Maybe that's because of the myriad languages and their speakers who were executed as a part of the genocide that occurred during colonization of this land. Or maybe it's because of intergenerational language shift. Intergenerational language shift is the answer to a question my kids asked a few months ago, and that is, if grandma is from Italy, then why don't we speak Italian? President Trump signed a new executive order making English the official language of the United States on March 5th of last year. I bet you didn't know, before that, there was no official language of the United States. In fact, we speak and sign hundreds of languages in this country. Roughly 1 out of 5 of us speaks a language other than English in the home. I teach a course called Language Rights and Repression in Education. One of the first concepts we explore is linguistic human rights. Linguistic human rights is the idea that it's your right to maintain the first language you learn in the home from your parents and grandparents and caregivers. What's more, researchers in linguistic human rights argue it's a nation-state's responsibility to create social structures that enable the maintenance of home languages. Rather than thinking of the United States as a language graveyard, how could we instead cultivate a garden of rich linguistic diversity in this country? The most expedient social structure for doing so is through our systems of schooling. Nearly 40% of children in the world go to school where the language of instruction is one they do not understand. The remedy for this lack of access is mother tongue education. Similar to Trump's executive order was the English-only movement. It began in California in 1998 with passage of Proposition 227, which attempted to eliminate access to bilingual education in K-12 public schools. In the year 2000, Proposition 203 passed in Arizona. It placed even stricter restrictions on access to bilingual education. Question 2 passed in Massachusetts in 2002. Each of these ballot initiatives attempted to replace bilingual education with English immersion. English immersion is a language education model where the only language allowed for instruction is English. Trump's executive order and the English-only model have 2 important things in common. The first is they both have to do with language ideologies. Language ideologies are the implicit or hidden values we assign to languages and their speakers. An example of language ideologies is the claim that particular languages are superior to others, or that speakers of certain languages are more intelligent than speakers of others. The second thing Trump's executive order and the English-only movement have in common is they both use language as a proxy for something. Language can be used as a proxy for things like race, immigration background, or documentation status. An example of using language as a proxy for something is the recent Supreme Court ruling that individuals can be detained on the basis of speaking Spanish or even accented English if they may have questionable documentation status. At the heart of the English-only movement was the issue of the effectiveness of various language education models. So far, we've talked about two: English immersion, which advocates would refer to as submersion, or sink or swim, and bilingual education, the goal of which is lifelong bilingualism and biliteracy. There's a third you may be more familiar with. It's called English as a second language. English as a second language can be problematic for several reasons. One is it prioritizes English at the expense of our students' home languages. In addition, our multilingual students in English as a second language may be segregated from their native English-speaking peers who are critical models for English acquisition. For decades, we have had overwhelming empirical evidence showing the educational outcomes of students in bilingual education programs far exceed those in any other setting. Students in English only will invariably sink. They may acquire English, but they will not learn core content. Students in English as a second language will appear to do well until the upper elementary levels, at which time achievement rates will taper off and decline. We know the path to cultivating a garden of rich linguistic diversity in this country. It's through large-scale expansion of dual-language bilingual education. School is a place where students should be seen and reached and engaged. For our multilingual students, school is a place they should see and hear and speak and read and write and learn in and through their languages. Because when our multilingual students leave school, their languages should not be left behind. Thank you.